What's up, everybody? Today I am back with another gym leader challenge, and this one was honestly a little bit difficult for me. It was a little bit emotional for me to complete. For those of you who may not have known, the voice actress for the original Misty and Jessie, Rachael Lillis, passed away earlier this month, and I've been a big fan of the anime my whole life. It's always been there for me. Pokemon became an important part of my life as a kid because I had nebulizer treatments. If you don't know what that is, basically, as a kid, I had such bad asthma that I had to wear a mask for long periods of time while I received my medicine, which was pumped into the mask, and I would breathe it in for a prolonged period of time. And I've always had trouble sitting still, and Pokemon was a way to get me to sit still. I was obsessed. I still am. I'm 31 years old now, and I'm still playing games, doing challenges, constantly reliving these experiences. And so, for me, Pokemon, not only the anime, the first seasons being so crucial, but I loved the character of Misty, and Misty was one of the characters that I completely, or one of the gym leaders that I struggled to beat my first time playing Pokemon Red, because Pokemon Red had Charizard on the box, and because Charizard was on the box, that means I had to play as Charizard. So I could get through Brock because Ember was effective enough, right? I could level up like crazy, but there was nothing that I could really do to deal with Misty. And I still remember the day that I beat Misty, and I screamed in excitement to my mom, and I got in trouble for it because I had just been bouncing off the walls and ridiculous and couldn't sit still. So the Game Boy playing Pokemon helped have me sit still during those half-hour treatments, and even still, I would get so excited just to play this game, and the loss of an important figure in Pokemon's history just can't be stated enough. So I'd like to dedicate this Gym Leader Challenge for Misty to Rachael Lillis. While I was doing this run, I did think that it would be kind of fun to highlight some water Pokemon that I haven't really used. And when I think about Misty as a trainer, one of the things that sticks out to me is how she'll take a Pokemon that is seemingly useless, right? With her Psyduck, with her, I believe she has Horsey at one point, but Togepi even, right? Pokemon that on surface level look really bad, but when they evolve, end up being incredibly effective Pokemon. So that becomes a theme here. Obviously, we stick with Staryu because Staryu is Misty's ace, and as we can see, it does absolute damage versus Brock. But Staryu, Starmie, I go with Doc because we've got the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs trope. I'm not really sure why I decided to make that connection, but something in my head clicked about Misty being Snow White, her being surrounded by people that she perceives for weaknesses rather than strengths, and those being the very things that help them. So with Staryu, because Staryu will learn the move Recover, I decided to call my Staryu Doc. Keeping with this trend of initially weak Pokemon who become strong, I decided to pick Magikarp. Magikarp is seemingly useless, but if a trainer is effective enough, can raise them into a Gyarados. And it makes sense that Gyarados is the rage Pokemon, so I name him Grumpy. One of the problems that we're going to run into in this is that you don't gain access to effective fishing methods until much later in the game. So your only two water options, realistically, are your starter, which in this case I swapped out Squirtle for Staryu, and then the Magikarp that you can buy. You can also get an Old Rod and catch Magikarp that way, but that's what you're limited to for Pokemon for large portions of this game. That being said, Staryu's an absolute menace, especially when evolved into Starmie and getting all access to these different type moves, and I probably could have completed this challenge with just those two Pokemon, but I wanted to have opportunities to use Pokemon that I haven't done before. Additionally, the addition of Gyarados is so important because Gyarados, as a water and flying type, is not going to be punished as heavily by the Bulbasaur. Now, I do make some unintelligent decisions here, and this is because I simply don't have any awakenings. And I had kept the move Camouflage, which was a smart move for me. But unfortunately, Bulbasaur's Sleep Powder lands, and he's able to knock me out before I can change types to the normal type, resisting, or not resisting, but getting neutral damage from grass. And I'm down to what ends up being my toughest battles are really with my rival here, and this one proves no different. I lost my initial battle with Rival 2. I am able to defeat Rival Battle 3 here, but this ends up being a theme for this run is how challenging my rival battles are, which I guess is consistent with Misty's character, right? If her rival is, for lack of a better term, Ash, while being a friend, also a rival, she's never really able to get past him because of that pesky Pikachu. For me, my rival is, in this case, Green, and I can't get past him very easily because of his pesky Venusaur. Unlike my early childhood, I now understand just how broken Magikarp is, and my runs as a kid would have been so much easier if I knew how to get Gyarados, and I knew how to get XP onto Magikarp, and I figured out how to do that before I would fight Misty, because here I'm able to defeat Starmie. Now, it does help that this is Gen 3, so Bite is going to be super effective against the dual type Starmie, who has a weakness to Dark because of the Psychic typing. For now, I'm going to skip past Lieutenant Surge. I do obviously need to fight the captain battle, the rival battle before the captain in order to get access to Cut to even get to Lieutenant Surge. But with only 2 Pokemon, and without a Water Stone to give myself the advantage of the Starmie rather than just the Staryu, it doesn't make sense to try and take on my most challenging battle. Now, I think there is a way that I could have done this. Given that I still have Camouflage as part of my set, I could have gone into that battle, I could have changed Starmie's type, or Staryu's type, and I would have been able to at least have a chance. But I think that that was a little bit unnecessary, especially since you don't have to do the gyms in order. That's one of the coolest things about Pokemon, is that there are specific gyms you have to complete, realistically Brock, Misty, and Koga, and then you pretty much get free reign of the map. Now, there are limitations. Obviously, the rocket events are things that have to happen in order to unlock other gyms, but for the most part, you defeat those gyms and you have full access to the map. This is going to be important because it'll allow me to get other Pokemon. The key to getting access to these other Pokemon actually lies with the Good Rod and the Super Rod. The Good Rod allows you to catch some of the Pokemon that I'm aiming for. The Super Rod allows me to catch better versions of those Pokemon. And if I were to point out a flaw in the original games, the pacing is that the Good Rod and the Super Rod can be obtained right around the same time. To advance to get to the Good Rod, you need to complete the rocket events, you need to get the Sylph Scope, you need to go to the Pokemon Tower, you need to dispel Cubone's mother, and then once that rocket is defeated there, you have access to the Pokeflute. Now, you can go one of 2 ways. You could go past Erica, and you could go down into Fuchsia City, and that would give you access to the Good Rod. Or you could go south from Lavender Town and immediately have access to the Super Rod, higher level Pokemon, and a better pool of Pokemon. I wish that they had done something with the rods to make them more available, especially because I think there are water types that just need a lot of time and investment to become good, and keeping them so far at the late game prevents that from really reaching its potential. Now, the point I mentioned about Gyarados being able to deal with grass types because it's neutral is actually a lot better than you think, because Gyarados has access to Flamethrower. So in addition to grass types dealing neutral damage, I'm able to deal super effective damage back and take care of one of my most dangerous enemies as a water type Pokemon trainer. With Erica defeated so easily, I'm now going to jump in and comment as to why I haven't grabbed a Vaporeon. Because one, I didn't want to deal with the creepypasta of Reddit, and if you don't know what I'm referring to, don't look it up. Just do yourself the favor. But also, because as I'm doing these battles, I want to limit myself to using Pokemon once. And so that means I'm going to limit myself to one of the evolutions. So my options would be Vaporeon, Flareon, or Jolteon. Given that there are plenty of other water Pokemon to choose from, I want to make sure that I preserve Jolteon for my Lieutenant Surge challenge. Now that I've easily walked through Erica, it's time for Rival Battle 4. And again, Rival Battles are going to be my most challenging. I should have led off here with my Staryu and dealt that way. I also at this point should have had Starmie. If I had Starmie, I would be able to use a thunder-based attack, dealing 4 times effective damage against the Gyarados. This would have been much more effective than my actual usage of a Staryu who can't really do anything. Still is limited by Bubble Beam. But my hope was to build up and learn certain moves, particularly Minimize. I thought it would be really funny to run a Minimize Toxic Staryu, which at some point I probably will end up doing. But given that that's my strategy for Koga, I really didn't want to be that cheesy, doing 2 runs with that move pool. I do think that it is a perfectly fine strategy to use. I just think that it doesn't fit this video very well. I want Starmie to do what Starmie does best, and that's shine as a special attack sweeper. With Team Rocket's plans foiled and Mr. Fuji freed from his obligation to Cubone's mother, I now have access to the Poké-Flute, which allows me to move Snorlax out of my way so that I can get to the part of the game that actually matters, fishing. As we all know, the Generation 3 fishing mechanic is probably one of the most fun. Waiting and watching as the ellipses go across the screen for it to say a Pokemon is on the hook. To me, that was one of the most exciting parts of fishing, and here I'm able to pick up my Super Rod and finally begin the fishing simulator to flesh out the rest of my team. In very short order, we're able to catch a Horsey right off the bat. And Horsey, I've decided to name Sneezy for obvious reasons. If you've ever seen a Horsey attack with Bubble, it blows Bubble out of its mouth, and it looks like it's sneezing. So if we're going to continue with this Seven Dwarfs theme, it makes sense to call him Sneezy. The next addition to our lovable band of miscreants is going to be Shelder. And I'm not sure if you've ever looked at Shelder's design carefully, especially Cloyster when it evolves to Cloyster. But for reasons you might want to ask your biology teacher, I've decided to name my Shelder Bashful. The most important addition to our team is, of course, Psyduck. Psyduck is so important if you've watched the anime because it was a combination of Misty's favorite and least favorite Pokemon. Psyduck caused her never-ending frustration, and the headache that he gave her, and consequently gave himself, would end up being his most effective weapon. As a result, there is no better fitting name than Dopey. After adding to my party, I've decided now I have enough tools to take on Lieutenant Surge. It also helps that my Staryu is Starmie, and I have access to Psychic. Because the map's so open, I go to Mr. Psychic's house, pick up Psychic, and because I'm very overleveled for this point in the game, I 3-shot with Starmie. Starmie's versatility is one of the reasons why it's my second favorite Pokemon. I like Growlithe and obviously Arcanine. That line is fascinating to me, but Starmie's versatility was one of the reasons I began to love this Pokemon. being able to be so effective against so many different gyms, having access to Psychic, having access to Surf, having access to Thunder, and having access to, Thunderbolt, and having access to Ice Beam allows you to deal with pretty much any threat you would have to deal with in this first generation of games, or obviously in the remakes. If you needed any proof of that, here's rival battle number 5. Now my rival up to this point has been the biggest challenge, and I'm going to be able to do unspeakable things to my rival as a result of having this Starmie. A Thunderbolt one-shots his Pidgeot, Venusaur comes out, and because of the poison subtype, Psychic is able to one-shot. Remember that a Thunderbolt is going to do 4x damage to Gyarados, resulting in yet another one-shot. A Growlithe, much as I love Growlithe, is a single Surf away from being swept out of my way, and last is going to be Alakazam. Now, I go with Surf here instead of Thunderbolt for the same type attack bonus, and I'm able to one-shot every single one of my rival's Pokemon. Yeah, Starmie's a little broken. Even though I am able to receive a Lapras, which is a very competent water and ice type on her own, I don't quite want to use Lapras because it doesn't really fit in my theme. I was thinking, well, Lapras can use Rest, so you could make an argument that Lapras could be sleepy, but I wanted to really focus on Pokemon that were initially weak and then evolved into something better. Given that Lapras is always kind of strong, there's no need to do that. So I did add, and I don't know why I didn't film it, but I did add a Krabby as well, evolved into Kingler with the name Snappy. Now I know that's not quite the same as Happy, but it's the same in spirit. With Giovanni, I accidentally opened up with my Gyarados because, to be honest, I kind of fell in love with my Starmie. It's hard not to. And Starmie is grossly overleveled in comparison to my other Pokemon. So it's time for me to make sure that I am getting experience onto these Pokemon and give them opportunities to grow. Now, if you've never used a Kingler before, which is pretty good reasons not to, he's a really strong attacker, but he's also one of the best Pokemon for putting HMs on in Generations 1 and then the remakes. If you use Krabby, he can learn Cut, Strength, and Surf. Those are all that you need as HMs to get through the entirety of the Gen 1 games. Victory Road only requires those 3. You don't even really need Cut, but Cut helps you access, obviously, the other parts of the game. So with this one Pokemon, you're able to get much more access here. Now, one mistake that I did make, which, if I could go back, I would change, is that I evolved Cloyster too soon, and so I'm stuck with the lesser Aurora Beam instead of the stronger Ice Beam. And I didn't really want to grind money to earn coins for the Celadon Game Corner. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's only 6 of the 7 dwarves, and you're right, I still don't have a Sleepy. So I decided to catch a Poliwag and name it Sleepy. Even though I'm not going to use it, its ability to put other people to sleep is its real strength. It could learn Rest, but it can also learn Hypnosis, which is super important, so I feel like just for completing the set's purposes, I'm going to have a Sleepy. At this point, I only have 3 gym leaders left, and I do have a type advantage over 2 of them, being Blaine and Giovanni. But given that I can't access Giovanni until I've defeated 7 other gym leaders, I'm going to turn my focus now to Blaine to give my other Pokemon chances to level up. And one thing that this fight is going to make very clear to me is that even with the better Pokemon, with the evolution, Water type has a really bad weakness when it comes to special defense. So that's a Fire Blast. Fire Blast shouldn't be effective against a Seadra. And yet, Fire Blast is able to do almost my entire health bar. 2 of them knocks me out. And yes, I know that Arcanine is his ace Pokemon. It's over-leveled compared to mine. But the special defense stats on each of these Pokemon is so low that they're almost not worth using. Starmie is just so far and away better than all of the other Pokemon, especially because the stats are well rounded, but so far and away better that I might as well just focus on my Starmie and make this a Starmie solo challenge. And since I've realized that my special defense is extremely low, I have a feeling that I'm going to struggle if I use any other Pokemon but Starmie for Sabrina. Now, yes, I do have an extremely high amount of levels, but the special defense stat is really what makes the difference here. The speed allows me to outspeed any of her Pokemon and deal massive damage. There, I demonstrated how Thunderbolt could be less effective than Surf with the Venomoth. I also kind of thought that Venomoth was flying, but then I realized that I was thinking of Butterfree. But even with the Alakazam having fantastic stats for Sabrina, I'm able to one-shot with a Surf. Always go with Surf as your neutral damage attack on Starmie, because Surf is going to get that same type attack bonus. Given that extra boost, she'll do a little bit more damage that way. By this point in the game, Giovanni is little more than a formality, especially given that he's particularly weak to my Pokemon. A single Surf will take out his Rhyhorn. His Dugtrio has the possibility to outspeed me, but can't. Nidoqueen is weak to Psychic and Surf. Surf probably would have done more damage, but I was curious to see if Psychic would knock her out. I'm able to one-shot Nidoking with the same method. And then, of course, the Rhyhorn, that should be a Rhydon, is also knocked out with Surf. So at this point, I'm realizing Starmie is just so ridiculous, I might as well just do a solo Starmie challenge. Which, once I finish my Arcanine challenge, it's either going to be a solo Starmie challenge or an Ampharos challenge. I haven't decided which, but both of those Pokemon kind of scratch that itch for me in terms of a special attack sweeper. Starmie, I think, has a little bit better of a move pool, has a little bit better of performance, but there's something just so adorable about Ampharos that I can't really say no. But when you look at my favorite kind of Pokemon, it should be pretty obvious what I go with. Now, I was disappointed there not to one-shot Pidgeot and not to one-shot Venusaur, because that put me in a precarious position, almost getting knocked out. But now, with my rivals' extra levels being stronger than last time I fought, and me focusing on my other Pokemon leveling up instead of just putting all of my chips into one Pokemon, this battle ends up being a lot closer than it really should have been. If Venusaur had knocked out my Starmie, and if Alakazam had knocked out my Starmie, yes, I could have gone to Gyarados, so it wasn't really that close of a situation, but that's still a whole heck of a lot closer than I would like. So I think that just means I have to level up my Starmie some more. Now it's time for the Elite Four challenge, and honestly, the first battle is going to be the toughest for me. It's water on ice, which, because there's not too many ice-specific Pokemon, leaves me with few choices to actually do strong damage. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that I gave my Golduck the dark, or the sunglasses, or black glasses, or whatever. Yeah, they're called black glasses. Even though he doesn't have a dark type move, that's a nod to the anime. If you've never seen Golduck with sunglasses, you haven't lived. Again, I'm trying to make use here of Pokemon other than Starmie, because really with these challenges, I want to highlight the virtues of the typing. And with my Gyarados, I am able to take out the Dugong. But I was worried about using too many of my Hyper Beams too early, because I thought I would need them later for the dragons. Now, what's nice here is that Cloyster goes for the Protects during the turns in which I'm recharging, which means that they are less likely to have Protect or be successful in their Protect against subsequent attacks. So I do make the switch here over to my Starmie. I do take damage from the spikes because I forgot that those were laid down. But I was worried chiefly about Lapras. Now, Lapras is an absolute tank. Lapras is exactly the answer I was looking for, right? As much as I wanted to focus on other water types, if I wanted someone to be able to absorb special attacks, Lapras is the answer. Lapras is an amazing tank. Someone that, if you have never used Lapras because you get it so late and it's too much of an investment for you, I highly recommend doing a run using a Lapras. Really strong Pokemon. Ice makes it really useful against dragon trainers. Well, I guess Lance, because that's the only dragon trainer. But also that general beefiness means that even though water has lots of damage or lots of weaknesses, Lapras doesn't take much damage. Now here I get myself caught in kind of a bad situation. I have the Jinx here, but because I'm immobilized by Love and Full Restore does not in fact remove the Attract, I was hoping to be able to do the damage that way. But my Gyarados keeps being unable to act. I don't have an effective move against Jinx. Now, if you watched my Sabrina run, you know how obnoxious Jinx can be because mine was very annoying because I modeled it after Lorelai's. Being able to get a Thunderbolt and the Paralyze, the immediate Paralyze and the Surf to close out this battle was huge. Jinx is almost as much of a wall as a Lapras is, not because Jinx can take as many hits, but because Jinx can stall. Right, Jinx can hit you with Lovely Kiss, Jinx can hit you with Attract, Jinx can hit you with an Ice Punch, and that Ice Punch can freeze you. All of these things add up to being an extremely annoying Pokemon to deal with. By the time I get around to Bruno, I'm thinking to myself, Golduck is perfect for this. But even though Golduck has high special attack, Confusion is just such a weak move. One of the things that makes Starmie so much better than Golduck is its access to Psychic. Psychic as a move is significantly stronger than Confusion. Also, it helps that Starmie's special attack is also significantly higher than Golduck's. Golduck's special attack isn't anything terrible, but it's also nothing too special. And for a Pokemon that Confusion's a little bit of a gimmick for it, it understands that, or it makes sense that you wouldn't really build around it. This does make this battle more complicated than it should be, and I end up resorting to my trump card and almost one-shot his Machamp, which is almost equal level to me. It takes 2 shots to remove the Machamp, and luckily using that berry means that it didn't prompt the Full Restore. Now I'm not able to one-shot Hitmonlee. The Full Restore comes in, and I go with the 2-shot instead. Last but not least, of course, we have Onix, so I'm going to swap into my Seadra because Seadra, Sneezy, can deal with Onix with a 1-shot. A little bit faster, and that water typing is always going to play. So far, so good. I'm 2 of the 4 battles down. Well, I guess technically 5, but 2 of the Elite 4 down, and I haven't really run into too many challenges. Agatha's kind of annoying with Ghost-type, but again, her Ghost-type Pokemon are going to be weak to the Psychic type that I'm able to use. One thing that I hadn't really considered was that I could learn Earthquake, but if I'm not mistaken, in Fire Red and Leaf Green, Earthquake is no longer effective against Gengar. If you didn't know, Earthquake is super effective against Gengar in Generation 1 because it doesn't have access to Levitate. I know that in the newer games, Gengar doesn't have Levitate, but I think in this generation, Gengar would be immune to Ground-type attacks. But that Poison subtyping would result in him being weaker. Now, the Confusion was the route that I was going to go to deal with Gengar, but he's just so weak. With Golbat, I have 2 options. I want to save my Psychic as much as possible for the Gengar at the end, so I'm going to use Thunderbolt. Here I switch back in, knowing that Confusion should be good against Arbok, but even with a super effective move, I'm not doing anything. And the Sludge Bomb gets the lucky poison. The poison deals 15 damage on 1 tick, and takes out my Golduck. So we're back to what it always should have been in the first place, which is running over everyone with a Starmie. When I tell you that Misty's Starmie is one of the most broken things in the entire game, I'm not exaggerating. It was so hard to deal with in Generation 1 because you typically don't have a fully evolved Pokemon that early, and Starmie does massive damage. Add in the flexibility. Now, Misty didn't make use of that flexibility, luckily, because how obnoxious would it have been for you to bring in something like a Bulbasaur, right, that had evolved into an Ivysaur, and instead of you expecting a water type, you get nailed with an Ice Beam at the second gym. That would have been insane, right? I would have been infuriated as a small child. Even still, all it took was 1 or 2 bubble beams to wipe out my Charmeleon and make me doubt why anyone would put Charizard on the box. He just didn't seem that good. Little did I know, I could have used anyone. But hey, I was 7. Cut me some slack. I decided to pit Gyarados against Gyarados, and you can see here the level disparity ends up being pretty big. Now I am able to wipe out his Gyarados by virtue of using 2 Hyper Beams, but that pretty much knocks mine out for the fight. This is going to end up being my hardest fight, which is probably my fault. And when I say probably, I mean this was definitely my fault. I should have put Ice Beam on Cloyster. I should have taken the time and invested in purchasing the TMs for multiple Pokemon. Having Ice available would have made these things pretty much one-shottable. But Cloyster is slow, and Cloyster's special defense is low. I thought here that I would have a chance with the Dragonair, and even though I do basically all of its health, I'm only able to get really through 1 with my Cloyster. This is my problem with only having 1 ice attack. There are still 2 more dragons to deal with, and I don't have the tools to do it. Weirdly enough, Outrage does, I believe, special damage. I thought that my Kingler would be fine, given the fact that Kingler has extremely high defense as well as attack, and I thought, oh, I'll be able to deal with it. Nope, I was wrong. Confusion does nothing, Surf is not going to be very effective, and because I'm pretty heavily indexed into water over ice, which was, again, my mistake, I struggled to clear through Pokemon. So now I'm left with pretty weak Pokemon and just with my Doc. And Doc doesn't have any super effective moves. This is where having Ice Beam over Recover would be a good idea. But Recover does pay off. Outrage can only do half my health, so Recover, using it every turn, brings me back to full health until Dragonite gets confused. With Dragonite being confused, well, I was hoping that that would stop him from being able to damage me, but given that he's locked himself into that turn to recharge, I get 2 free attacks to take out Lance. So my team takes a beating there, and it really just shows that I don't really have a reliable Pokemon other than my ace. But in another way, I almost feel that that's how it should be. There's a reason that these gym leaders have their ace Pokemon. Their ace Pokemon are for that purpose. Everything else isn't working. So let me go to my tried and true, and let me make sure that I can defeat my opponent. Now, we're going to ignore the fact that there's a pretty large level gap here, and that realistically I should go into the Elite Four at higher than level 50. But when I was training this many Pokemon, and with how long it took me to complete the run, I didn't want to train any higher than 50. I think 55 would have put me in a better position, because when I try and do anything here, the Pidgeot spams sand attacks. Because it outspeeds me, there's nothing I can do. If I had started with Starmie, if I had correctly used my elixir like I should have in order to replenish all of Starmie's attacks, then I could have opened up with the super effective Thunderbolt and maybe not one-shot Pidgeot, but do some pretty good damage. Right there you can see that it wouldn't have been a one-shot, but a two-shot would have been effective, and I wouldn't have lost my Cloyster for nothing. Now, that Growlithe that had been so easy to deal with is now evolved into an Arcanine. Arcanine's a problem. Extreme Speed is able to outspeed me even when I put the Dragon Dance on. The Extreme Speed lands a crit. Goes for 3 of the 5 total that he has, and he 3-shots my Gyarados. I bring in Golduck here, and because my special defense is low, that actually deals quite a bit of damage to me. That deals almost, or a little, like pretty close to 50 damage to me. There's no reason that that should happen. But because my Gyarados is down, I don't have access to Flamethrower, so I have to use Psychic, except I forgot to put more PP, into my Psychic. So now I have to use another attack. I was hoping that Surf would do it, but now I'm locked into a trap. If I use the Elixir now, which I should have done on the first turn, I would get hit by the Solar Beam. So now I'm going to have to get creative. If he goes for the Solar Beam here, I can switch into another Pokemon, let them get knocked out, but I need my Gyarados. So that's exactly what he goes for. So I'm going to swap into Krabby. I'm going to salute Krabby for his service, or Kingler at this point, as he goes down to the one-shot, allowing me to sub the Gyarados in, use Flamethrower. And funny enough, Venusaur uses Sunny Day, but it doesn't knock him out. Even with the boost that I get to my Flamethrower, Venusaur survives. But that crit comes in huge. I could have used that the turn before, of course, but so be it. Rhydon comes out now, and I figure, why not wait out the Sunny Day? If I try and use the Hydro Pump, it's not going to be as effective. Forget it. It's super effective anyway, and it knocks out the Rhydon even through the Sunny Day. I'm not positive that Sunny Day reduces water types, but it just seems like it should. I could be wrong there. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I feel like it should. I do, for once, think intelligently and put up the PP on Doc. Doc's PP. But I go down. So now I'm left with my ace in the hole and too many Pokemon left for my rival. I thought my run was going to be done here. I forgot that one of those Pokemon was the Venusaur, which was extremely low health. And last but not least, the Gyarados that I'm 4 times effective against. And while I don't exactly one-shot, the Gyarados is not long for this world. Dragon Rage doesn't really do much to me because it's locked in at 40 damage. I could tank 3 more of those with no issue. Now we do get locked in this pattern, and what I probably should have done was just use Surf, but I wasn't going to give him the chance to attack in case he used a Hyper Beam or anything crazy like that and landed a crit. So eventually he stops using the full restores, and I'm the champion. It was a long and hard-fought battle, but I think it was worth it. This was a lot of fun for me, and I enjoyed this challenge. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up, comment below what you want to see for my next challenge. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time.